Part 2. Whispers of Eternal Night. Elara staggered backward as the shadows crept toward her, their icy tendrils brushing against her skin. The manor groaned like a living creature in pain. The air smelled of rot and something ancient, something that had waited far too long. Her uncle's screams still echoed in her ears. "No, this isn't real," she whispered, clutching the journal tightly against her chest. But it was real. The entity pulsed in the darkness, formless yet alive. It fed on fear. It fed on the Voss bloodline. Visions flooded her mind, her ancestors standing in candlelight, blood dripping onto stone altars, whispers in forgotten languages, each generation binding the shadow to protect the world from its chaos. And then she saw her parents. They hadn't abandoned her. They had sacrificed themselves. They had entered the void to strengthen the seal when it began to crack. Tears streamed down Elara's face. "You left me to save me," she choked. The shadows hissed around her. "Join us. End the loneliness. Be whole again." For a moment, she almost gave in. To see her parents again, to stop the pain. But something stronger rose inside her. Love. Racing back to the attic, shadows snapping at her heels, she threw open the chest once more. Beneath the journal lay a silver amulet, etched with the Voss crest, the raven on the thorned branch. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. She flipped to the final page of the journal. "The amulet is the anchor. Use it at the altar beneath the manor. But beware, it requires your essence." Her essence. Blood. The entity roared, filling the attic with a vortex of twisting darkness. Faces of long-dead relatives appeared within it, their mouths open in silent screams. Elara smashed a window and climbed onto the rain-soaked roof. Lightning split the sky. She slipped on the tiles, but caught the edge of a gutter, pulling herself toward another window and forcing her way back inside. She ran down into the basement. The temperature dropped sharply. Cobwebs clung to her face as she pushed through a hidden stone doorway. There it was. The altar. Ancient. Stained. Waiting. She placed the amulet at its center and began reciting the incantation written in the journal. "Umbra vincula solvo, lux eterna regnat." Nothing. The shadows poured into the room, coiling around her ankles, climbing her legs. Her heart pounded. Your essence. With shaking hands, she grabbed a shard of broken glass and sliced her palm. Blood dripped onto the amulet. For a second, silence. Then, blinding white light exploded through the chamber. The entity shrieked, recoiling violently as the light burned through its darkness. The vortex twisted, trying to drag Elara with it. She screamed the incantation again, louder this time. "Umbra vincula solvo, lux eterna regnat." The amulet cracked. The light intensified, pulling the shadows inward. The entity fought, roaring in rage, but the seal began to close. With one final, deafening scream, the amulet shattered. Darkness collapsed into nothing. The manor fell silent. Elara collapsed onto the cold stone floor as dawn's first light crept through the basement window. It was over. Or so she thought. Days later, Elara stood outside the manor as workers boarded it shut. She burned the journal, watching the secrets turn to ash. She would rebuild her life. She would move on. But the nightmares didn't stop. Whispers still echoed in the dark. One night, as rain tapped against her apartment window, she found another letter resting on her kitchen table. No address, no footsteps heard. Just words written in ink that looked almost like dried blood. "The cycle begins anew. Your child will bear the mark." Her breath caught. She wasn't pregnant. At least, she didn't think she was. Slowly, instinctively, her hand moved to her abdomen. A faint warmth pulsed beneath her palm. Impossible! The room grew colder. From somewhere inside the small pouch where she had kept the shattered amulet shards, a whisper rose. Blood remembers. Elara lifted her eyes toward the dark window. In the reflection behind her, for just a moment, a shadow stood where no one should have been, and it was smiling.